Coming up on Broncos Country Connected, wide receiver Tim Patrick joins me in studio to discuss his mindset for the 2022 season and what it's like catching passes from Russell Wilson. Then NFL draft expert Cecil Lammey is here to preview the upcoming draft and share some insight into some of the prospects the Broncos could be interested in on days 2 and 3. Finally, the Denver 7 crew breaks down what's in store for the players during veteran minicamp and why it's conveniently scheduled just before the draft. Broncos Country Connected is next. Welcome inside the Pat Bowlen Fieldhouse for Broncos Country Connected. I'm Alexis Perry, joined now by Broncos wideout Tim Patrick. Tim, the offseason is flying by. Veteran minicamp is already underway. How would you describe the culture this team is cultivating right now?
The culture is great right now, I'm not gonna lie. It's Russ had brought a different juice and something that we needed, and we just have that mentality to win every day. And that just in life and football and everything that we do, just win.
Well, I'm sure the 2021 season was frustrating for all involved, but over this offseason, I'm sure you've had some time to reflect. What is the mindset you're bringing into the 2022 season?
It's the same mindset every year, just do my 111, make sure I'm doing my job and exceed expectations. I know people upstairs and coaches that have expectations on certain players, and it's my job to exceed those expectations. So this year, it's nothing different. I'm gonna go out there and beat me.
Looking back on the 2021 season, where did you see the most growth in your game, and where do you see some room for improvement?
Route running is always the number one improvement for me, being a taller guy, knowing to drop my weight. That's one of the things I focus on in the off season. But another improvement was just being consistent. I'm trying to be more and more consistent every year. So when it comes down to the end of it, when it's a big game, I'm gonna make the play.
You mentioned route running, which is kind of funny given the fact that over the last 3 seasons, you've led all NFL wide receivers in yards per target when running a go route.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
No.
Well, now you know. Russell Wilson, he just so happens to be one of the best deep ball passers in the league, so I have to assume this is pretty convenient for you right now.
That's fire. I didn't know that, so yes, that is super exciting. I didn't even know that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah. So what is it about Russell Wilson that excites you, given the fact that you're one of the best go route runners in the league?
Honestly, everybody knows what he does on the field, but the way he carried himself around the facility, his preparation, like everybody knows we have a very talented team, but it's the little things that matter, and he does all the little things, and he does the basics. And when you see a guy at his level that's won a Super Bowl, that's doing the little things, it makes everybody else want to do them. And if you have a team that's doing all the little things, there's no telling what we could do.
Well, speaking of the little things, you guys as a group went down to San Diego to work with Russell. What did you gain from that experience?
That he's serious. He's serious and he wants to win. You don't know what to expect first time meeting him. You think we're just gonna throw, work out together, talk football. But we had a full-on training camp at his house, and we were there 7 to 9 every day.
Yeah. And
we were working, and he just, I guess, bleeding his mentality into us, letting us know what he expects from us, and we're ready to go out there and show him what we could do.
What can you pick up from him as you're continuing to grow here as a leader for the Broncos?
The way he doesn't get too high, he doesn't get too low. He always stays in that middle range. He's always controlled. He never wavers, I guess. He's just always cool, calm, and collective, and that's something I want to do this year.
Well, the RDA gang is still intact. Coach Azzani, he was one of just a few coaches retained by Coach Hackett. So what are some of the benefits that come from having some consistency in that wide receivers room this year?
We have expectations out of each other, so we know what to expect. We're not learning each other. We know each other's tendencies, so when one person is lacking, we could pick that person up. Coach Z sees it all, so he's never gonna let us chill. It's always 110 every day.
In the wake of signing your first big multi-year NFL contract, what's it like heading into this summer with is it peace of mind? Is it confidence? What does that contract do for you?
Peace of mind. I'm always gonna have peace of mind.
Right.
Honestly, it didn't do nothing different. It was the same mentality. There's probably a little bit more pressure on me now, but I strive with pressure, so I'm not too worried about that.
Well, essentially, you have played on 5 one-year contracts.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that gave you maybe an edge that many players don't have?
To have to go out there and prove it every year, It's, I guess it would be stressful. I don't take it as stress, but it could be stressful. And getting a 3-year contract, I guess you have some security, but in this league, nobody has security. So
right.
You gotta have to, every year is a 1-year deal, honestly.
Well, the NFL draft begins this Thursday. You are living proof that draft status does not matter. So what is some advice that you would give a player who deserves to hear their name called this weekend but won't hear it called?
For me, the one thing I did, I remember my year, there was the most ever receivers invited to the combine. It was 58. Wow. And I put 58 on my screensaver. I put 58 in my room. And you just got to find that one thing to remind you the disrespect and just have that motivate you year on out and think about just strive to being the best in your class. Honestly, that's pretty much all. I'm not a talker. Yeah.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for your time. I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you.
Well, still to come here on Broncos Country Connected, Cecil Lammey will join me in studio to preview the 2022 NFL Draft. Don't go anywhere.
Broncos Country Connected is brought to you by Ford Trucks. Built better, built stronger, built Ford tough.
I think it's really important to have flexibility in a draft and the ability to move. I've said this before, the ability to move up. There's a rush in getting that player. Javonte Williams, when that trade was done, the room went crazy. There's also juice moving back, knowing there's going to be a play. There's enough players. If you move back, you can still get one, but get more picks to build your football team. So it's always fun getting on the phone with other GMs and having fun with it and making trades. I just think it's fun to work the draft and to try to build your football team the best you can. And we're not making trades just to make trades. We're making trades to build this thing the best that we can do it.
Welcome back to Broncos Country Connected. Alexis Perry here, joined by my good friend and NFL draft expert, Cecil Lammey. Cecil, George Paton said on Friday that this time of the year with the draft coming up, this is like the Super Bowl for college scouts. And I know it's almost the Super Bowl for you because you're a guy that follows these prospects throughout the year. You go to the Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl, any other bowl, I'm sure. So tell us what your overall impressions are of this 2022 draft class.
Yeah, it is my favorite time of year because the regular season's a grind. The draft season is even better because you get to see GM versus GM, right? It's Tom Telesco versus George Paton. I'm going to be in the corner of George Paton. This draft class is really thick. It's really full. And even though the Broncos don't have a first-round pick, I feel that they will be able to collect talent with the picks that they do have and should be a very strong class overall.
With the pandemic affecting the college game as well, that means that this is an older class this year. As Darren Muji called it, it's almost like a double class. So there is so much talent. So why is that a positive thing for the Broncos, especially this year?
Well, it's a positive thing because if you were to pick the year that you could move back and still have this type of collection of talent, there will be players available in the 50s and in the 60s when the Broncos pick at 64 that in a normal year just wouldn't be there because of the thickness of this class. It is a double class. I loved when Darren said that because you have players, you have guys that came in early, you have guys that stayed for a 5th year, even some guys that stayed for a 6th year. So this is a really unusual year where there's this massive collection of talent right between the picks that the Broncos have. From picks 50 to 120 is the meat of this draft class. The Broncos have 5 picks within that range. They'll be able to get 5 quality players there.
5 quality players, maybe even a day 1 starter there at 64 if the Broncos stay put. But George Paton said there is a chance that they could move up, especially into that 2nd round. So hypothetically, the Broncos do move up in the 2nd round. What position are they likely moving up for?
Yeah, I look at this tackle class and I think it dries up a little bit faster than some people think. So if you're looking at Tyler Smith, the player that they brought in for a top 30 visit from Tulsa, he'd be a type of player that you'd move up for, and he could sit behind Billy Turner, and actually perfect for him to come in, learn some more technique. Guy had a problem with holding in college, but you come in, you learn behind a veteran, and then see if you're ready to take over as a sophomore in the NFL. And I think Nick Benito, pass rusher from Oklahoma, who I know they have interest in as well, another top 30 visit, which you're keeping track of now since they're at 64. Who are they looking at? Benito comes in, a little bit of Shaq Barrett to his game. I don't want to say Von Miller, but he's got a more of a slender lower body, kind of like Von and Shaq did, but he's got multiple pass rushing moves to get after the quarterback, and he knows how to stack them. So those 2 players May not be there at 64, but if they get there in the 50s, that's where I think the Broncos could move up.
Well, there are also a couple of homegrown guys that the Broncos would likely have to move up for as well. We're talking about CSU tight end Trey McBride and, of course, Wyoming inside linebacker Chad Muma. So I know that you were at those pro days. Is there a chance that the Broncos could keep these Chassa products here in Denver?
Yeah, I think there is a really strong chance. Now, they're not going to be there at 64,
right.
I don't believe. McBride specifically, I think he's a late first-round pick. I know that the Chiefs love him, and they have 2 picks at the end of the first round. One of those could be McBride. They're also trying to move up for a pass rusher. But if you look at Chad Muma and what he did, I was at the Wyoming Pro Day. I talked to Logan Wilson, who's a star linebacker for the Bengals now, former third-round pick from Wyoming, and he said, Chad's a faster version of me. So I think scouts learned that by having Logan fall to the 3rd round, Chad's not going to fall to the 3rd. Okay. He's going to be a 2nd-round pick, probably in front of where the Broncos are picking, but he's a modern inside linebacker. He can rush, he can cover, he can stuff the run, he can do it all, and would be a fine pick for the Broncos in round 2.
Okay, hypothetically, all these guys get snatched up. So the Broncos, they actually decide to move back. Who might be available?
Yeah, Cordell Flott from LSU, another top 30 visit for the Broncos, but also one of the youngest players in this draft class. He's not even 21. He's like 20 and a half, I think, top of my head. So you get a young player who's very versatile, mostly lined up in the slot for LSU, but he also has experience lining up outside and following #1 receivers around. In that LSU secondary, they saw some of the best receivers in all of college football. So Flott could come in, learn behind the veterans, and of course be a piece with Pat Surtain for the future of the Denver Broncos.
Okay, well, the first time in a handful of years, we are not doing a deep dive on the quarterback class. The Broncos have their franchise quarterback in Russell Wilson, but it's really never too early to start developing your next franchise quarterback. So do you think there's a prospect in this year's draft that the Broncos should consider, or should they maybe wait until 2023?
Yeah, and I know that 2023 is a better quarterback class, certainly at the top, but I look at this year and basically every year for an NFL team, even if you have the guy, go draft someone, develop them. If they turn into anything, you can trade them away because you still have the guy. And if they don't, well, it's a late round pick. So for me this year, Skylar Thompson from Kansas State. He's that guy because he's kind of built like Russell Wilson. He's a shorter quarterback. He's very athletic. In fact, you know, there are people that say he relies too much on the run. He doesn't pass enough. And his numbers won't blow you away.
Right.
I mean, let's look at his pass touchdowns. Like, none of the stats are going to blow you away. But I'm talking about physical skill set and the type of quarterback that the Broncos would need behind a Russell Wilson eventually. You can pick him up in the 7th round, develop him. Again, if he turns into anything, great. If he doesn't, great. You just move on and get another QB. But I think Skylar Thompson's worth a look late for these Denver Broncos.
Why is it so important for the Broncos to get a quarterback here early with Russell Wilson still here?
Yeah, because you have more time with Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like when Brock Osweiler, who I know people have varied opinions on, but Brock Osweiler, they don't win Super Bowl 50 without Brock. I give him full credit for that. And he had 4 years with Peyton Manning. So imagine a guy and you have 4 years with Russell Wilson. Something happens, kid needs to come in. He's got that, experience not on the field, because Brock didn't have any, but that experience from working with one of the best. And Russell Wilson, just by watching his mannerisms, he's professional. There's a difference between being a pro and being a professional. And Russell Wilson is that professional. He just doesn't play pro football. He knows how to be a great quarterback. A young guy could come in and learn, and if you needed him in a pinch, he'd be ready.
Well, Cecil, thank you so much for the time. Have fun this weekend. I know it's going to be a blast for you.
It's my favorite time of year.
I love it. Well, coming up after the break, the Denver 7 crew will touch on veteran minicamp, Pat Surtain's ceiling, and so much more. Don't go anywhere. Thanks for sticking with us for this final segment of Broncos Country Connected. As the Broncos progress through their offseason program, I'm sure you're wondering what the differences are between Phase 1 and veteran minicamp. Thankfully, Super Bowl 50 champion Ryan Harris is in the Denver 7 studio to share some insight into this week's schedule and why it is perfectly timed just before the draft. Here's Lionel Bienvenu, Troy Rank, and Ryan Harris.
Thanks, Alexis, and welcome to our Denver 7 segment brought to you by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Well, guys, the Broncos have officially taken the practice field. Number 3 walked out there. It was amazing. Voluntary minicamp has begun. And Ryan, as a player who took part in minicamps for 10 years, how is this different from the OTAs?
Well, the first thing is the schedule. The coaches are going to get a ton more time with the players, and what they're really showing is what Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is going to look like in the season. What time are meetings? When is film? When are you going to go to practice? When's the walkthrough? When's lunch? Linemen always need to know that, right? So you learn some important information about the schedule, but also you get into that atmosphere of just football, football, football for 6-7 hours of your day.
Yeah. When's lunch? Number 1 on the list. Troy, this is the first episode of the Russell Wilson offense with a special guest appearance by Nathaniel Hackett and Justin Outen. Really, it's the first of many install periods for the Broncos.
Yes, I mean, you've got to put it together like pieces of a puzzle. You're not giving them the entire playbook and say, go memorize this. Everything is done as a progression. We are going to see, can they integrate it to have a running attack while allowing Russell Wilson to still color outside the lines and make big plays scrambling? That's what we want to see, and we'll probably don't see that till the preseason.
All right, so we got a 3-day minicamp followed by the draft right after, Ryan. This is a pretty big week, I would guess. You think these two are connected, minicamp and draft?
You don't say, Lionel. I mean, right now, if you're the front office of the Broncos, you're also making sure that you're getting reaffirmed or you know your roster. There's no coincidence that this 3-day minicamp comes just before the draft. They want to know their team and they want to know their weak spots heading in to this week's draft.
All right, well, let's talk about this draft, shall we? It's different this year. There's no first-round pick. And we heard George Payton tell us that's okay with him. They got Russell Wilson. Who needs a first-round pick? They're not looking for a quarterback, Troy, but exactly what are they looking for in rounds 2 through 7?
Yeah, listen, they've had a terrific offseason. It starts with Russell Wilson, but they still have areas they need help and they need depth. It starts at cornerback, but they also need help at linebacker, edge rusher, tight end, and tackle. Those are the areas to keep an eye on to address because especially at cornerback, they've got to add numbers, but this team's not a finished product. As much as we think they're going right to the postseason, there's still some wrinkles to be ironed out.
Well, in your mock draft, Troy, which is posted on the denverchannel.com right now, you have the Broncos taking it number 64.
Chad Muma, linebacker from Wyoming. Inside guy, rangy, lengthy, fast, maybe even a 3-down backer. We haven't seen that since Ryan Harris was playing. That was Danny Trevathan. So maybe he's available. It's going to be a push, but I'd love to see him available.
Well, Ryan, you had the megaphone out a couple of weeks ago on the show saying, Muma, Muma. You were screaming for Chad yourself.
Well, hey, I led Troy and you all to the Super Bowl. I'll lead you to Chad Muma, too. He's a great player. I mean, Troy said it best, a 3-down back. He can really rush the passer as well, double-digit sacks in his time at Wyoming. And let's be clear, us in Colorado, we understand Wyoming has some great players that have come out of there, not just Josh Allen. So he may get overlooked, which would be the perfect time for the Broncos to go and snag him. That would be the steal of the draft at the 64th pick.
Well, Troy, ESPN draft expert and guru Mel Kiper Jr. has the Broncos taking Trey McBride, tight end from CSU, at number 64 in round 2. Now, that would be great, but do you think Trey McBride has any chance of being available at number 64?
In a word, no. Because he's gotten so much attention at the end of the first round from the Bengals, from the Bills, from the Chiefs. I don't know how he slips out of the first, but even if he does, I don't see him getting past pick like 40 to 44. And the Broncos, that's a huge ask to go up from 64 to 44. Now, if you have him on your board and he's still there at 55, you could move up. That would cost you about a 4th rounder, but I just don't see it. I'd love to see Trey McBride here, but for me, he is a borderline first-round pick, so I don't see him anywhere near 64.
All right, Troy, we're watching all the players at minicamp, but you got your eyes on a few players in particular. Patrick Surtain at corner, and keeping up with the Joneses on the D-line, Draymond and DJ.
Well, we can see that Pat Surtain can cover you tighter than saran wrap. That's who he is. But now this year in year 2, they need him to become an all-pro type player, and he has that kind of ability. I've said this. He's more polished than Pledge. His fundamentals are so sound, it's like watching a training video. But we need him to get even better and have more of a voice in that locker room. And when it comes to Draymond Jones and DJ Jones, Draymond can have a breakout year because DJ Jones can move from inside and stop the run and outside technique as an end. That should allow, if this team gets leads for once, DJ and Draymond to rush the passer. I can't wait to see the Jones go after it.
All right, Ryan, one thing the Broncos did not take a break from in the offseason was giving back to the community. I mean, we saw lots of players and coaches and staff members turn out last Saturday for the Broncos Boys and Girls Club's second annual March for Peace, which they held in the Montbello community.
Well, I love that Montbello Boys and Girls Club and the Montbello community. And really, for a lot of players, they don't know the city. I mean, everybody thinks you move to Denver, you play for the Broncos, you're living in Cherry Creek or something like that. No, you're down in Parker, Littleton, these places. You don't know the city. You definitely don't know where the city needs you. So for the Broncos to continue to show up in that Montbello area with that Boys and Girls Club just continues to give guys the opportunity to connect with the community, but also with each other. Get away from football a little bit. What do you care about? You know, how do you interact with kids? How important are the future fans of the game to you? These are all things that happen from just showing up one time in our community as they did this year.
Yeah, that was great to see. All right, thanks, guys. Great insight and info, as always. Alexis, that's it from Denver 7. Let's go back to you.
Great insight, guys. Well, that's all the time we have for Broncos Country Connected, but stay connected with us anytime by following @BroncosTV on Instagram and Twitter, or check out the Broncos YouTube channel for the latest broadcast coverage of your Denver Broncos. Thanks for watching.
Broncos Country Connected is presented by Carpet Mill Outlets. Bigger discounts, better selections.